Welcome to the Stories from the Street podcast from the Toy Box charity. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, Toy Box is a non-profit organisation supporting street children in Latin America, Africa and Asia. We are very aware that street children need a voice, and this podcast has been created to help make that happen. We'll share with you the first-hand experiences from our community working with street children, striving to make a difference to young lives. Welcome back to the Stories from the Street podcast from Toy Box. I'm your host Gemma, and joining me today is our very special guest Sanjay from CHETNA, our partner in Delhi. We're very excited. This is the first time we've taken our podcast overseas to hear stories straight from the street. As you know, if you've listened to the past few episodes, we've had members of Team Toy Box talking to us. So I'm really pleased that we could get Sanjay on board today. Welcome, Sanjay.
Hello, hi, and Gima, and all the listeners. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm very happy to share our journey.
Thank you. And can you tell me a little bit about CHETNA? I know that Toy Box works very closely with CHETNA and has done for many years. So we are thrilled to have you on the podcast. But if you could introduce a little bit about CHETNA and the projects that we've worked with you on, that would be brilliant.
To tell the listeners that I am the founder director of Childhood Enhancement through Training Action. In short, it is called as CHETNA. CHETNA in India in Hindi means creating awareness. So this was formed in 2002. And we were starting our work, it was a great debate among all the founder members that what is the issue we should take up to work upon. And suddenly we came up with a scene when we were passing by through a flyover. We seen many children on the street. And suddenly that was stuck in our mind. Can we work for street connected children? And since then, 2002, we are just working upon the street connected children on their various issues. They are economically deprived. They are socially excluded. They are not in mainstream. They are away from education. They are into substance abuse. They are being abused by passerbys and the local authorities many a times. So that has given us courage to innovate many programs which will help these street connected children. Regarding our partnership with Toy Box, that the beautiful journey was started in 2016, where both the organization, because they have mandate to work for street connected children, we thought why not we work together, and we started a very innovative project called Street to School first. And why this project? Because past Chetna had admitted many children to the formal school, the government schools, but we found that they actually dropped out, and the dropout rate was up around 46%. And that was the entry. Toy Box said, hey, would you like to work with the 500 children and ensure that they are not dropped out in this much percentage? And from there, we tried to identify reasons why children are not going to school. So some of the reasons, for example, they are the first generation learner. Their parents are not educated. Schools are a little far away. Schools are not child friendly. They are not able to cope up with the education. So they need some kind of a guidance or remedial support. Their peers, there is a peer pressure that their peers say that let us not go to school and just move around and roam around. So those issues were identified, and this particular project we started in 2016, given very, very encouraging result. The dropout rate reduced to 97%. So 97% children have been in school for almost 3 years. And that is the beautiful project we started with Toy Box and which is still continuing. Second, I would like to talk about a project which is again very innovative. And, in the entire world, there was a discussion, there was a debate. Can we use sports as an opportunity to engage children and empower children, especially street connected children? And that is how we developed a project called Show, and where there are many children, approximately 500. They've been trained in various games like Coco. This is very, very Indian kind of khel, but now it is in international forum. Kabaddi, cricket, and some Indian street games. And with these combination of four games, we try to give life skill training to the children. How can they be in mainstream playing by these games? How can they draw the strength, the values, negotiation power, and how can they are able to adjust in a society which is not gender friendly. So these are some of the indicators which are for Sure project. And again, as I said, this particular project also have yielded very fruitful results, and especially during COVID, when there was only one guidance internationally, stay at home. This particular project find both shore and street to school has really helped children to cope with the situation.
That's great news, and it's so interesting to hear straight from you what's going on in Delhi with children and the challenges that they're facing. And I think something that we've learned through working with you guys on these projects, so the Street to School and through the Shore project, is that period poverty is a real challenge for children living on the streets in Delhi. And just for reference for our listeners, looking at definitions of period poverty, it's often defined as having a lack of access to sanitary products due to financial constraints. But when you dig a little bit deeper, there are other definitions that kind of work around the subject, which of course includes access to hygienic facilities or the knowledge or access to the education around menstruation. So accessing toilets, hand washing, waste disposal are all form part of period poverty. And I guess when you are living in the situation as street children, whether you're living with families in kind of a slum community or whether you're living as a child on the streets on your own, that's got to be a huge challenge, not only in terms of the income to buy sanitary products, everything around it in terms of your learning, who are you learning from, and accessing the loo. So why, we've looked before at why does period poverty exist for women and girls around the world. We've seen stats that say 1 in 10 girls in India cannot afford sanitary products, and I guess that can only be greater when we're looking at children who are connected to the street. In terms of your experiences, Sanjay, why do you think that street girls or children connected to the street through their families, why is it so tricky for them?
This is a really important issue, and sometimes, in the countries like India, people see it as a taboo to discuss. They see that this is the women's problem, this is the girls' problem, and this is something which one should not discuss in open. But now with the change of mindset, people are actually getting knowledge that there are many girls in rural areas, not only street girls, but also in different areas where people do not have access to the sanitary pads. And this may be because of economical constraint. Sometimes, really for the listeners, there are many myths attached to the periods, and something like this is for example, someone say it is a God's phenomena, and because the god is not happy with women for something, they have like a punishment for 5 days. Sometimes it is seen as the girls might have done something wrong, and hence the nature is punishing. Sometimes many taboos that if you are during a menstruation cycle, you cannot cook, you have to stay at one of the corner. In some of the areas, if the girls are going through periods, they need to put a red color on their feet so that people can identify that the girl is going through periods, and so that they remain not come to closer to the girl. So I would say in a nutshell that the reason social, economical, and various myths, and also gender discrimination that makes girls further vulnerable if they are on streets.
Oh, wow. So, although we think of it as being quite a private thing that we do, people do want to discuss and want to know more about. Actually, from what you're saying, it's kind of everybody does know when it's happening for these children. Everybody knows when they're on their period. It's made clear because they might be being excluded, or it's being highlighted that they've got to do with things differently for that week. I wasn't aware of that that kind of exclusion around it. And I know we've got a few clips here from children that have shared with us about the myths and taboos.
मैम, जो आम दिन में हम कर पाते थे वो महावारी के समय नहीं कर पाते। वो ये काम है कि हम पहले कहीं भी पापा के साथ या अम्मी के साथ कहीं भी उठ बैठ के खा सकते थे, लेकिन जब महावारी आ जाता है तो अब्बू के साथ नहीं बैठ सकते और ना उन्हें अपने 1 हफ्ता तक फेस दिखा सकते हैं।
While I'm on my period, I'm prohibited to do household chores and I cannot come near to any male member of the family for a week.
महावारी के समय में जब हम पीरियड से होते हैं तो मंदिर नहीं जाते हैं और खाना नहीं बनाते हैं, और पापा को 5 दिन मतलब 1 हफ्ता तक शक्ल नहीं दिखाते हैं, और खाना बनाने पूजा नहीं कर सकते हैं।
When I'm on my period, I'm prohibited to enter in the kitchen, prepare meals and sit next to any male member of the family for at least a week.
मेरे को सबसे ज़्यादा समस्या ये होती है, मेरे पेट में पेन होता है बहुत, और मेरे कमर में बहुत दर्द होता है। और मम्मी किसी चीज़ को हाथ लगाने नहीं देती, पूजा नहीं करने देती, खाना नहीं बनाने देती और भैया पापा के सामने बैठने नहीं देती और बोलते कि दूर हट के बैठे क्योंकि भैया है, पापा के सामने मत बैठो, बर्तन को हाथ मत लगाओ, कुछ मत करो, खाना मत छुओ, अचार मत।
Apart from the normal cramps, when I am on my periods, I'm restricted to go to any religious places, touch any food items, and I cannot meet any male member of the family.
And so when we're looking at period poverty then, Sanjay, in terms of street children, what are the practicalities of it? I've got a statement here that says just 36% of India's 355 million menstruating female population use sanitary towels for protection. So what is it that the street girls are using in terms of sanitary protection where they're not able to access what we would consider traditional products that you would buy from the shop? How are they managing during their periods?
See, this is again very important to understand that the way the entire world, especially the elite class, I'm not saying that it is only the problem in India or countries like India or Asia. It is all across the world wherever people are living in the rural areas or in green belts. They might not have access to the new world, which talks about the sanitary napkins and fairly designed with something gel inside, and people are selling at high products, the high value. In India, generally the old clothes, old youth clothes, may it be saris, may it be any cloth piece which is cotton in nature, is kept for those 5 days, and generally people wash them and wait whenever the periods come, they will use under their undergarments, and then it is used and thrown. So this is very common in the rural areas and especially among street girls. But the problem here is about the disposal and cleanliness and hygiene. The girls who are living on street, when they do not have facility to release themselves, natural cause, how can one think that they are able to change their pads, whatever it is, for repetitively when they are menstruating? And that becomes a real problem when they have blood stains in their pajama, and even the peers, boys, and everybody comes to know that the girl is menstruating, and you are not able to go to toilet to clean yourself because it is a paid, you need to give five rupees to enter into a toilet, public toilet. So every time, if you count that, if the number of times the girl has to visit to toilet, if it's so again, I would say there is a cost for hygiene in that sense. So that is definitely a difficult task in terms of management and also in terms of hygiene.
Oh, wow. So I wasn't aware of that. I mean, I can imagine if the only access you have to a toilet is a public toilet, which is quite common, isn't it, in this scenario? I wasn't aware that you had to pay to use them as well. So not only have you got to find this one toilet, you've actually got to pay to use it, which again, if we're talking about the financial implications, there's not only the buying of the products, but actually using the toilet each time, let alone kind of accessing, as you said, disposal and hand washing. How do you think lockdown has impacted the situation? Has it made it even more difficult for these girls?
This was, I would say, if ask me, so who is the kind of most vulnerable child during COVID? I would say a girl on the street and going through her menstruation. Why? Because the old clothes which I was talking about, was generally donated by the family, by the passerby, or where you were working as domestic help, or you are begging on the street. Sometimes people tend to give old clothes. But during COVID, everybody has said not to touch anything, so people were not even giving. And they were also got this message that they should not receive because there was a kind of a virus which can put you in difficult situation. So that was the real difficult time when they were not able to go out and collect old clothes to help themselves. And that made and especially about the social distancing, the public toilets were closed. So most of the girls actually have managed behind the bushes or in the dark. So they kept wearing the same thing entire day. And in the night, when they find some isolation, they try to clean themselves. I think this was the most tough time during COVID.
I can imagine. So the toilets were closed. You need to use the loo, and for hygiene reasons, this must have been a nightmare. In terms of worrying about their health, but I guess safety as well. wandering around in the dark in the bushes is not the safest place for a young lady, is it? So that's quite frightening for them, I would imagine.
मेरे पास सिर्फ पानी की सुविधा है और किसी चीज़ की नहीं। मैम ये कि पानी की सुविधाएं तो है पर लेकिन वही वॉशरूम वगैरह की सुविधाएं नहीं है तो हमें वो चाहिए।
I only have access to water. There are no toilet facilities.
मेरे पास खाली पानी की सुविधाएं हैं, वॉशरूम की नहीं है क्योंकि वो बहुत दूर है और हमें और घर में हम लोग नहीं बदल सकते क्योंकि मम्मी पापा घर में रहते हैं और घर बहुत छोटा सा है, उसमें बाथरूम नहीं है, इसलिए हम नहीं यूज़ कर सकते, उसमें इस्तेमाल नहीं कर सकते। हमें हमारे घर से शौचालय बहुत दूर है, हमें पैड छुपा के लेके जाना पड़ता है और हमें अजीब सा भी लगता है। रास्ते में सारे लड़के बैठे रहते हैं और अंदर शौचालय बहुत गंदा होता है, पैड और इधर उधर बिखरा पड़ा रहता है और हमें बहुत गंदा लगता है।
I only have access to water resources. There are no washrooms nearby. Whenever I have to change pads, I face many problems, like I have to hide it. The toilet is far away in the community. It is also very dirty. Girls throw used pads here and there in the toilets.
हमारे पास जब माहवारी से होते हैं तो यहाँ पे मतलब पैड यूज़ करते हैं तो इस चीज़ का सुविधा है, पर यहाँ पे पानी आने का प्रॉब्लम होता है और शौचालय भी घर में नहीं है, बाहर जाना पड़ता है, इससे बहुत प्रॉब्लम होता है बाहर जाने में।
We do not have access to water and toilets at our home. I have to use the public toilets, especially for changing the pads.
So how do you think, in terms of managing their period, that it impacts on education? I know we've talked about street to school and making sure that street children have access to education. Do you think that the factor of period poverty is something that does affect their education?
Yes, definitely yes. Especially, now we have also heard that, especially for the girls on street, the age of menstruation is decreasing. So, for example, 11 to 12 years old girl start with her period. So, at that stage, if the girl is in, say, 5th standard or 8th standard, it will be difficult for her to manage her periods, especially if she is going to school. So one reason is that schools do not have these facilities, especially sometimes, though I can say with confidence, in India, the government schools have different toilets for boys and girls. But practically, if you see because boys are more in number and they are very chirpy kind, and also they would like to, mingle with girls to understand what is happening to her, why she is moving like that. And they have curiosity. So sometimes privacy is not ensured, and that makes their difficult time. And also that if they are at home, there are lots of gender issues. For example, the younger brothers or elder brothers or father, when they come to know that the girl is menstruating, so general advice is to sit at a corner. And so she has no playtime and nobody to talk to, and she is going through anger. She cannot even touch food. She cannot cook food or make tea. So on the mercy of her mother to get something. And if the girl is working on street, if she is a rag picker or she is moving to someone's home, it is very difficult for her because she is already in a fear that the blood stains can be witnessed through her clothes. So I think this is really a tough time for girl that time.
Yeah, it sounds like it is really tough. So what has Toybox and Chetna been able to do to support children? We recently had a period poverty campaign where our supporters could gift £3 to provide a period pack to a street connected child in India, and we did that. Really, I think we kind of worked on that through lockdown because we were so concerned about the situation. But as we've learned, we would like to continue that. So can you tell us a little bit more? Obviously, it hasn't just been about providing packs. There's been a lot more to it, hasn't there? So what has it that Chetna's been able to do working with these street girls when it comes to periods?
Confess to all the listeners that this was not an issue where we were working earlier. This was almost like 2.5 years, 3 years back. We understood that this is a problem, but we were not sure how to get into this issue. So for us, we were only talking about the awareness and taking life skill session and all that. But when this COVID came, we got lots of calls from the girls that they are finding problems to manage her periods. And that has given us insight. And then then we asked, how are you managing till date? Because we were getting calls. We were connected through calls. And then they said they were managing through old clothes which were given by the local community or passerbys or all that. And because now they don't have any opportunity. So then we approached Toy Box. We wrote a mail and tell them. And then what we thought, can we start a campaign where the quota for 6 months for girls given through the sanitary pads. So there was a concern in mind that can be a good activity, but it is an economical burden at the later stage. So how far Chetna can go with this? But we thought that this is an important activity. Let them learn because they are even earning, and fortunately the cost of pads is decreasing everywhere in the world. And also there are many NGOs, many organizations, they are making reusable pads. So once they learn, and because they are earning, probably they may know how to keep safe. So we started this distribution. By the grace of our work, we got permission to organize such camps. We visited many slums, many areas on streets. We called the girls and distributed these sanitary napkins. And just to give the number to our audience, we have reached to 3,000 girls till date.
That is brilliant. That is amazing. Wonderful. And in terms of those distributions, going hand in hand with that, we talked about the Shore project and the outreach work the children has been around discussion, hasn't it, of how to manage their periods and myth busting and talking about the taboos. So there's kind of that longer term education piece around it, isn't there, that has been working with the girls to, talk to them about the situation that they're in, and they do have someone to talk to about their periods. Is that right?
Yes, definitely. And the main reason was that even the guardians, parents, teachers, as I said, it is like a taboo. People do not want to discuss this. And for example, there is not a culture when a father is discussing the girls about her periods. In India, it is not. This is not a culture. It is only mother. But if mother has gone through or is knowledgeable to manage her periods, then she can tell her daughter. But if even the mother is not aware, and if she is also into traditional thoughts, traditional things, and doing all kinds of rituals rather than helping her daughter to manage her periods. So what we thought, what I would say is that definitely there is a need where the guardians, the teachers, the brothers, the local people, they are aware. I just tell you a small incident which had happened in one of our place. When the girl used to go to change her pads, her brother and a few of his friends were curious why she was going every time after a certain period of time, and they were actually peeping inside when she was changing. And suddenly someone saw, and it broke into a great conflict. And it has actually ended with someone came and his like father objected, and somebody came and brutally beaten her father. So this is really a difficult situation when you are uneducated, you are not knowing anything, you have myths in mind, are lacking opportunity, and hence there are many issues.
Yeah, so with I guess with the outreach team working with these children and their families to kind of build that education around the subject matter in terms of health and building on access, the children can talk to each other. And I guess maybe that's how it works with a lot of the projects, is when you are speaking to children like to tell their friends things. So I would imagine that message is rolling out further and further. Do you think that, the children that you're speaking to are having that little bit of influence and sharing that knowledge with the other children around them?
I would like to share some of the incidences. For example, when the team was distributing these pads in public, public in the sense that, the girls were actually under the flyover near some park, and we had organized camp. So people saw that there are only girls invited. And for what? And then they saw that they are getting some packets. There was curiosity. People thought that we are distributing some food or something else. So they came and then say, no, it is not for you. It is only for girls. And what is this? These are sanitary napkins, sanitary pads. Oh, for what? So, these kind of curiosity came, but we tried to manage this, that there were the adult team members, boys and male team members, who were engaging with the community at the other end. So they are not coming close to the distribution side. So, but that was also educating. So the point is, if you talk in public, if you come, the girls came outside their home to get those packs, and when they went back and people saw, and their father or their brother saw that she's coming with packs inside the home because that was a quota for 6 months. I think that probably had a discussion within the family. What is this and what is this about? So in a way, it is also educating. In a way, it is also creating a space for girls to talk within the family. It is also a space for father and brother to understand that she has this very natural kind of phenomena which goes through every 5 days in a month, and they need to be very like empathetic with the girl during those days. So I think that all activities really helped.
It really sounds like bringing this conversation not necessarily to the forefront, but making this conversation happen and promoting it and doing it in such a positive way for these girls who maybe haven't had anyone that, might listen or they might be able to talk to, and creating that conversation among the girls. It feels like there's a real change happening, doesn't it? It feels like it's making that longer term difference where, for the next generation, or as you're saying, you're talking to the children, but also their mothers, and you think that could make a real difference next time around when these children that you're working with have their own families. Hopefully we'll see a really positive change as a result of it. So it's so nice to kind of think it's not just sanitary towels, is it? There's so much more to it and so much to understand. And I guess there's lots of children, as you're saying, they're coming along at 11 or 12 years old. Do they even know what's happening? Have they received any kind of educational conversation around periods before they happen, or does it just happens and they think, what on earth is going on? So, hopefully all of that is really changing. And I think lots of women listening to this, and lots of men as well, it's a really difficult time, isn't it? And it's something that you've always got to be mindful of. You've got to be ready and prepared for your period when it comes. You've got to manage it. You've got to get on with your normal life, do everything as you do. And I think, for children, it's really tricky as an adjustment anyway. But when you've got these additional factors like having to use a public toilet, or having to find money that, your family might otherwise be spending on things, in terms of their priorities, it might be on food, it might be on travel to get to work rather than on period protection, then it's a huge burden, I think, for a young person to take on. But then when with all those external factors, it just makes it so much tougher. So it's so encouraging to hear that the project sounds like it's going really well. The community's really picking up on what you're doing, and you've got all these girls turning up in a public space where something's so taboo, and you're able to talk to them. They're wanting to come, they're willing to engage with you and learn and take away these products that are just going to make their lives a little bit easier.
हम पहले कपड़ा यूज़ करते थे, पर अब उसमें बदलाव आ चुका है और अब हम पैड यूज़ करते हैं। और इससे हमें ये फ़ायदा होता है कि पहले कपड़े यूज़ करते थे तो हमें एलर्जी हो जाती थी, दाग लग जाते थे। तो अब पैड यूज़ करने से ये होता है कि हमें दाग भी नहीं लगता और एलर्जी भी नहीं होती और बहुत कंफर्टेबल महसूस होता है।
From using cotton clothes to using pads, I've experienced a vast change. Whilst using clothes, I faced many issues like allergy and skin problems, but as I switched to using pads, I feel more comfortable.
मैम, सबसे पहले तो चेंजिंग मतलब नहीं कर पाते, एक ही कमरा होता है और फिर उसमें सब बैठे होते हैं, भैया पापा सब होते हैं, तो हमें दूर जाना पड़ता है, शौचालय की तरफ जाना पड़ता है, वो बहुत दूर है, फिर छिपा के ले जाओ तो डर लगता है कि कोई देख लेगा, तो शर्म भी आती है बहुत, तो हमें इस चीज़ की दिक्कत होती है।
The major problem that I face is when I have to change pads, as we only have one room. The public toilet is far away and I have to hide pads while going to the toilet. I feel ashamed at times.
I would like to mention here one of the great initiative by the Delhi government, and what they have done is, as I raised this issue of changing pads, so they have come up with a concept of pink toilets, and the pink toilets are at some of the posh areas where the girls can actually go and change their pads. The concept is good, but the only issue is that it is at very high-end places like big markets and renowned places. So if the same concept is can be used in the slums, I think that can help many girls on the streets or in slum areas.
Oh, it definitely sounds like if that can be rolled out a little bit further, that's going to make a huge difference, doesn't it?
I really want to thank all the listeners that who had came very open-heartedly, and they had actually tried to donate through Toy Box. And I just wanted to ensure that the donation which you have sent through Toy Box has actually been given to the girls, and there is a change which can be witnessed. As I said earlier, it is kind of a one-time activity which we started, but to maintain this, we need more support. So whenever you have extra space, extra money, extra desire, please do support Toybox to support us, to support girls on streets.
Thank you very much for joining me today, Sanjay. It was really interesting to get your insight into what's happening. For everybody that's listening, if you would like to give the gift of a period pack, you can visit our website or our Facebook and Instagram shops to give a gift today. Thank you for tuning in to the Stories from the Street podcast. We'll be back soon. If you've got any questions for us or you'd like to find out more, you can email us at supporters@toybox.org or visit our website www.toybox.org.uk. We'd love to hear from you. Goodbye for now, and thank you for listening.